Okay.
Right then. So that was the smooth, stress-free start that I was hoping this event would pick up on. So I guess I'll introduce myself and say what we're trying to do here. So my name is James McMahon, and I really like indie music. I do a website called Indie Heaven, which is kind of a celebration of the stuff that I loved, love now, but really obsessively loved as a teenager. I really wanted to reach out to the bands and the musicians that mattered so much to me when I was a teenager, which I just think is just such an amazing window of excitement in your life as a music fan. Because I'll be dead honest, I went on to be a music journalist and worked for loads of big magazines and newspapers, and I don't think I've ever been as excited as I was when Louise from Sleeper followed me on Twitter, which kind of is I'm not sure that's how it's supposed to be, but it definitely is how it was for me. So I didn't want to let a year pass without marking it in some way. So I thought I'd gather together some of the site's alumni, which is the people you can see on the screen in front of you, just to have a bit of a chat. I kind of really like the idea of pairing some people up who maybe haven't met or maybe did meet back in the day, or as we've just discovered before we kick this off, a bit more recently than that. So I thought what we'd do is we'd have a chat for about an hour, and then in the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we will turn it over to the people who are attending, and they can ask some questions as well. So that'll be fun. So I'm going to pick someone to sort of kick this off. And I guess that with this side, with Indie Heaven being so much about the stuff I loved as a teenager and that experience, Manda, tell me who you had a poster of on your wall when you were 15.
Oh God, 15. Oh God. So that was my introduction to all that is indie, and my start of buying the NME, and the start of even just cutting pages out of the NME to put on my wall. So it'd be my Manchester phase, most likely, in Spiral Carpets, Happy Mondays, Stone Roses, Daisy Chainsaw, Jesus and Mary Chain. Yeah, that kind of route.
I didn't know that you'd had it. Did you have a bucket hat?
No, no, maybe lots of other things, but no, not that.
When did you become aware of Amelia? Because there's sort of like a kind of like a fan friend mentor inspiration thing going on between the two of you.
Oh, absolutely. We've got a great story, me and Amelia. So very start of this, we were very new to getting to London or touring, and we got the offer to play a few gigs with Heavenly, and we had a friend who then became our tour manager, Stuart Mason, and he offered to drive us to do it and hire a van, which, like, hiring a van to do gigs, this is a weird kind of prospect. And we agreed to do it, and it was to do upstairs at the garage and a couple of other places. And that was the first time our van ever got broken into during a gig. So the gig in London didn't happen, and it was very traumatic. And they ended up doing a bucket round the fans to raise money for us for all the stuff that they'd nicked. And it was, yeah, a very traumatic time, but very momentous. And you did actually play that night though, didn't you? Yeah, so they didn't disappoint the fans who'd bought tickets at least, and we've always stayed in touch ever since.
Yeah, I actually had forgotten about that.
Oh God,
I think we were really upset for you. I think you were
it
the
was
most
horrible because it was such early days. Like, to get to London, being a tiny Glasgow band was like a giant thing, and for that to happen, it was just oh God. But then the then tour manager we mentioned, Stuart, he worked at a record label who put a split single with us and Heavenly, which was our Caroline single. So there was lots of links, lots of stuff happened with us.
I was in a lot of the BIS gigs in the audience, jumping up and down as well.
So this is the thing. So how did you come to BIS?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I heard them really early on, and I just absolutely loved them. I don't know. probably they were the band, you know, before we started, you were talking a little bit about, gigs and whether they're exciting. Bis gigs, I mean, I've loved lots of bands over the years, but I think Bis gigs were the gigs that I loved the most. I went to see them all over the place, and it was just such a force of energy. They were gigs that were as good as gigs were supposed to be.
Oh, wow.
Hey, this is something beautiful happening tonight, guys. I will talk to some of the boys in a minute, but
this is great. Let's keep this going.
When did Amelia? I mean, you've talked a little bit, Amanda, about how you met Amelia, but when did Tallulah Gosh or Heavenly, or what Amelia had done? When did that come on your radar? Basically, when did you stop listening to like Flowered Up and get into the good shit?
So it was around that time, because Operation Heavenly was one of the best albums I'd heard in ages, and I just couldn't stop listening to it. I didn't actually know a lot about Tallulah Gosh, I have to say. I was probably a little bit too young.
Yeah.
But that's the way that you do learn about all the exciting things out there, when you get a good band and you see what else they used to be part in, and it's so exciting.
Martin, when I did the Q&A with you for the site, I didn't quite know about your past with the whole sort of death to trad rock stuff. I thought that was like fascinating, like reading about how you'd played with a load of those bands, and it kind of made me think, did Tallulah Gosh ever come on your radar?
Well, yeah, because they were kind of part of a universe of it's like we thought ourselves as being indie kids. That's what we called ourselves. Yeah. But we only thought there was about 10 in Liverpool. And if we saw somebody walking down the street with a bob haircut or something, we'd follow them to see where they were going, in case they were going somewhere cool where there were other people like that. Yeah. And Tallulah Gosh were just part of that, really. I used to listen to their records and the shop assistants, and but I must have been 18, 19 then. When I was 15, it was Madonna and Duran Duran and stuff.
I mean, again, all great shit.
Yeah.
What about you, Johnny? Who was on your wall when you were 15?
15.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a little.
I was a pop kid, so
I've got a bit of wiggle room. We can go for 14 if you want, Or
okay, maybe.
That's that kind of time,
I would say probably stuff like very pop stuff at that point. The big indie sort of explosion hadn't happened for me yet. That came along in around 88.
Right.
Before that, I'd listened to mainly what people would call chart shit, but which I used to really like and still do like.
Yeah, totally.
So it's probably something like Michael Jackson, to be honest with you.
Right.
I absolutely adored him. But also you get stuff like Johnny Hates Jazz, stuff like that.
Yeah. Could you moonwalk?
I could.
Really?
I could. I would copy it. I would. Yeah, I can. I cannot now. Sorry, but I could. I'm not going to do it now.
I'm a bit busy. I'm a bit busy now, so I'm not going to moonwalk right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess just sticking with you, Johnny, man. Like, when did Menswe was sort of born out of that, like that fandom, really. That's how I always saw it. Like you were fans before you were a band, really.
Yeah.
Is that right? Am I right in saying that?
We walked out of the crowd onto the stage, for better or for worse.
I'm going to go with better.
It kind of became very infamous for that, I think.
Right.
So we did have a lot of mates who were in fairly successful bands, and as much as it worked for us, it kind of worked against us as well.
I mean, let's stay with the positive though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna coach you through this,
Okay.
I loved your band when I was 15. Loved your band. I thought I didn't understand any sniping about authenticity or all that kind of nonsense. It was just, I really want to buy a suit. That's how I felt when I got into menswear as a kid. But no, like, was that kind of that fanish enthusiasm important to the band being put together? Like, do you think that almost the sort of the fuel behind it, really?
Kind of, yeah. That and other things, which I won't really go into. But yeah, we were big fans of bands like Pulp and Blur and stuff, and we had been lucky enough to know them and get to know these people. So it definitely played a part, yeah. And you can see that in the stuff we put out. You know, there's no real one sound. It's like we're just copying this band, that band, and this band and that band. We weren't kind of copying them. We were just doing what we thought was interesting at the time. But yeah, we were fans that basically took it a step further, maybe too far.
Again, we're going to stay with the positive, at least for a while. Did you and Martin ever cross paths in the day?
We've definitely been within the same physical area. I don't think we actually met, or I have met other boos.
We did have a chat once.
Oh, okay. I was
Night.
very, very off my head.
Yeah. I came to see you play in New York, supporting Sebado, and you were absolutely fantastic.
What?
It was
Menswe
like,
is Sebado?
yeah. It was one of those things where there's bands playing all over the city, and
yeah, it was C&J Festival, I think.
Right.
The festival they have in New York for new music coming through, and we played in some auditorium there. But yeah, those were the better days for us. I think the earlier days we were very, very fresh-faced and punky, and it hadn't really started to grind us down yet, which came a bit later. But yeah, they were my favourite times, I think, those early times. But yeah, I obviously can't remember it as well as I thought I could.
I always think about there was that BBC sort of that kind of reskinned Jules Holland show, that Britpop Now, and it's got Damon Albarn presenting it, dressed as like a farmer or something. And I remember I went on a French exchange with school and met my first girlfriend. So exciting! Oh my god, life's brilliant! And got home and Britpop Now was on, and you know, I've watched that video many times since, and there are bands that I thought were the shit who are shit, but it was the most amazing thing as a kid. Do you remember that? Do you remember playing that show?
Britpop Now.
Yeah,
vaguely, yeah.
I think
a little bit.
I think. See, I
it
think
was all done. The thing is, it was all done. Being it is television, it wasn't all done at the same time, and none of us were in the studio at the same time.
No, you were all like in a treehouse together, like talking about the Kinks and stuff. Surely.
Yeah. Everyone seems to think that we were all doing that, weren't we? We were all doing the Lambeth Walk down Camden High Street. But no, because of tours and stuff, you know, that program was made at different times. So I didn't get to call
it wasn't called Britpop Now when they asked us to do it, because I don't think we would have.
Yeah.
No.
Was that like a later rebranding of it?
Yeah, we were told it was just British bands were on it. That's what we were told.
Right.
Yeah. You got to remember that most of the bands at that time didn't want to really be associated with the word Britpop at all. You know, even if they happened to be the most Britpop sounding band ever, one of the most popular things to say at that time was, "I'm not Britpop." You know, we're not Britpop, but of course, you know, that's changed.
I mean, even now as a term, it sort of like it rankles. You know, it's
a shit word, isn't it? It's really shit. Yeah. It really is. It's horrible. It's just horrible. But
it's really weird, that show though, because PJ Harvey's on it, which is like the least Britpop person I can think of. You know,
we supported her as well.
Really?
Us and Pulp, yeah. It's a huge show in Paris, and we supported her.
That's crazy.
I don't know how that worked, but yeah.
Mandy, when this broke, you know, Enemy cover and Top of the Pops and stuff, it's sort of a little bit like the Britpop's sort of, it's just starting to kind of get a bit smelly. Like, did you ever feel part of it?
I think we've always felt like outsiders. I don't know if it's just from being slightly younger than everybody else, or from being from Glasgow, or I don't know what, but we've always just felt not really part of anything. Like we don't really belong. The music that we didn't seem like it fitted anything. We as people didn't feel like we fitted anything. I think we all just felt odd, even though we weren't on drugs or anything then. So
yeah. And I guess a bit like with you, Amelia, like you definitely sort of, you were like, well, you might argue differently from like where you were stood, but like for me, you were like a revered. I was the same with Martin, really. You know, kind of giant steps is way before Britpop per se. Like, but with Heavenly, like I've said this to you before, like it felt a little bit like Heavenly wanted in on that. Am I right in saying that?
Heavenly wanted in on Britpop. Yeah, I guess we'd been doing music for such a long time, and we thought we were pretty good, and we had, you know, a lot of people did really, really like us. And I think that Britpop was the first thing that came along where stuff that we thought we were pretty similar to was actually doing really well. So we were like, okay, maybe if we just tweak ourselves just a little bit, we could do quite well. And maybe in a different world we might have done, but we didn't.
I mean, that's totally, you know, you look at, you know, Pulp are totally a, you know, like an indie band or whatever you want to call it, like sort of being accepting of a Union Jack to sort of get a little further ahead, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think it was, I think we weren't particularly the Brit bit of it. It's just there was a set of bands that we really liked. But to be honest, I think it was quite similar. And I think most bands are like this in that all through our career as Heavenly, and that was our fourth album was that one. We were always inspired by the bands that were kind of around us. So each album is different, really quite different. Although there's a common thing throughout, and that's because the things we were listening to just changed over time, and it's just really natural, I think, that your music changes as your influences change, and you know, and the people you're going to see all the time. You know, we were going to see Pulp, so our music slightly merged, went that way. The previous album we were going to see all the Riot Girl bands, and our music went slightly that way.
Yeah, no, totally. It almost comes back to that fan thing, I think. Martin, you would,
isn't it? When you're in a band, that's how you get inspired by other bands. So people tend to. That's how the scenes happen, I guess.
Martin, you were slap in the middle of all that. Was that mental?
Which bit?
Well, I was like, I think when I did the Indie Heaven interview with you, and I said something about Top of the Pops, and about TFI Friday. And you were like, oh, we never did that show. But, you know, you had a song that was bastardized for a Chris Evans jingle. Like, that's pretty Britpop, isn't it?
I don't know. But I never saw that advert. I know it exists, but
that's what used to get me into school when I was 14.
You just kind of working a lot, away all the time, and occasionally I mean, I wasn't living in London then either, but I used to go up to London and hang out at gigs. I used to go to a lot of gigs, never went to see the bands, just to hang out in the bar, see if I could see Johnny from Menswe.
No, I guess what I'm asking though is that, you know, you'd sort of let's just put our cards on the table and say that all of these like piffy genres are things that people like me back in the day used to make up for a laugh in an office, right? And they're all bullshit, right? But for want of a better term, like you'd sort of done like a shoegazing thing, or you'd done a bit of a psychedelic thing. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, much like, you know, we were just talking about Pulp and how Pulp kind of were a really good band that sort of just needed like a fire under them that maybe that period provided. Like, did you feel a little bit like the booze were kind of going along with it because it was an opportunity?
I think after Giant Steps, I really wanted to be on Top of the Pops and have a hit single, and I didn't want to do it the slow way. You build a fan base, and I just wanted to do it. And once we'd done that, I wasn't really that interested, and I kind of lost interest in going to gigs and listening to kind of guitar, the music that I'd liked before. I completely lost interest in.
Like pop stardom.
Yeah, you know, I liked having a lot of money and spending it. But it was, I mean, I ended up staying in an awful lot, not going anywhere, and I wasn't the best of health, really.
Well, I'm going to loop.
The other thing is, I thought Britpop was just I thought it was just a London thing and like a Melody Maker or NME thing. And it wasn't until maybe a decade later that I realised it had been something for people, it meant something.
Yeah, it's you said that in the interview that we did, you know, that it was almost like, oh, this isn't just a Camden thing, because, you know, me being a kid in Doncaster, it was a thing, you know. I guess while we're on Top of the Pops, and I'm really sorry, Amelia, that I'm going to talk about Top of the Pops for a minute, but
you do that.
Is that something that you would have liked to have done? I presume the answer is yes.
Me, yeah. I'd have been happy in the audience. But
were you in the audience? Were you in the audience? No. Okay, how can we make him? I mean, I was in the audience once, so basically I've been on Top of the Pops. You can see the back of my head down the front of when the Future Heads are on at one point. How can we make Amelia feel better about not being on Top of the Pops? I mean, it's not as good as everyone thinks, is it?
Doing it now.
The first time was really exciting for us. It was for a long time. It was all I really cared about, was that one day I'd like to be on Top of the Pops. So it was like something scratched off the bucket list. But I have to say, it did start to wear on my nerves around the third time of doing it. It's a little bit boring, you know, being in a band. 80% of the time you're doing fuck all. You know, when you're touring, you're just sat on a plane, or you're sat on a coach, or, you know, and then 20% of it's actually music. And that Top of the Pops became kind of part of that, oh, you've got to do it kind of thing, rather than an actual privilege, I think, which is a shame. I think the problem with Menswe is we got everything very quickly, very early on, and far too easily. And so we got bored really easily, really quickly, which is a shame, but it was a side effect of the route we took to get on things like Top of the Pops.
Did you ever see anyone good in the canteen, though? Yes.
The first time was the best, because Stuart ended up playing snooker with Todd Carty, who to us was Tucker. Tucker. So that was really cool. But yeah, you always saw people in the canteen and stuff, and there was a little bar. You'd see people in there, and of course they filmed EastEnders there at the time when they were doing Top of the Pops out in Elstree, so you could raid the Albert Square set, which was pretty cool.
I'm a big EastEnders fan, so I would be more excited about being that close to Albert Square than Top of the Pops, if I'm being honest. Maybe not at the time, you know. I've said this to you before, Amanda, that kind of Top of the Pops story that people have of, I saw a band on Top of the Pops and it changed my life. Like, that is genuinely like my entry to BIS. Like, I remember where I am at. I remember when you're on. I'm not cool enough to know that you're gonna be on, but I'm watching Top of the Pops because that's what you do. And there is a before BIS on Top of the Pops, and there is an after BIS on Top of the Pops. And the after bit is where I've found fanzines and I've found a favourite band, and, you know, I've got no money to spend on anything other than 7-inch singles, you know. Like, tell me a little bit what it was like for you there.
So to us, or to me, I thought
Well,
top
you
of the
like
pops.
the lads aren't here, so let's make it about you.
I can say anything. It was, to me, it was a wonderful thing to do. It was very unexpected. I think, as Stephen said in his interview with you, that he always thought things like this would happen. He's always really confident, which you always need someone in your band like that. But I'm probably the opposite, and I've never thought anything would happen. So to get a call to say that we've been offered to go on it just as an exclusive because the producer liked us was just kind of wow. We were still so tiny at that point. We were touring, doing our first ever tour with the Super Furry Animals. We'd never done one before, and we were just in this wee tiny van, not even like a splitter van or anything. And it was just so exciting, so exciting. We didn't even drink. I'll still remember the credits coming up on the screen saying Mandarin has just passed her driving test. Like, that's how young I was. It's weird. Really weird.
How old were you?
So I just turned 18, which meant John would have been 16 and Stephen was 19. And it's just so weird because John was, I think he'd still at school officially. And it was just weird because I remember going to the studio after we got home and there was builders across the road shouting down like, "You were on the telly." And it was weird, like people actually recognized us just from being on the TV. So it was really weird. We'd never done anything like that before. It was really strange, and I'll never forget it. If that producer had not got us on there, I honestly don't know what would have happened with our career. I don't know.
Were you on twice?
Yeah, because we got on the first time as an exclusive for Candy Pop, just because it was coming out as a single, and then after that, it charted, so got to number 25. But Chemical Underground, which was the Glasgow label that released it, hadn't pressed enough copies, because why would you think you had to press more than, tens of thousands of copies? So it then got to number 25.
Was there ever a conversation around Eurodisco, or was that a little bit too low in the charts?
Oh yeah, sadly no. Sadly not. Yeah, that just got to 37. But again, by that time, to get to 37 was actually a lot of sales to get to that point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I was quite happy with it, and I suppose worldwide, it's probably one of the most popular songs of ours, and it's still in the set, and probably always will. It's like my mum's favorite. It's the not as embarrassing song. If you meet someone who says, "Oh, you were in a band, what do you sound like?" You don't really play them Candy Pop. You play them things like Eurodisco. It's a bit less embarrassing.
Well, this is it, because you did. I think for a while you had a bit of a weird relationship with Candy Pop, right? Like, did you? You almost felt a bit embarrassed by it. Is that right?
To a degree, I suppose, because if you think about it, it's been around since I just turned 18, and it's now a lot later than that. So we did omit it from our set for quite a while, but as a music fan, that probably did really gut a lot of fans who came along to gigs. So it's been back in the set for a long time, and I don't care. It's okay.
It's good getting older and just not giving a shit about things. That really
My son likes, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, totally. Amelia, have you done? I feel really bad that I just left you out for like 10 minutes. Sorry about that. Did Heavenly or Tallulah Gosh, or did you do much telly? Did you do any telly? Have that experience?
No, we didn't do much. We did a few little bits and pieces, but really not very much at all. We did a really nice some stuff abroad. So we did some nice stuff in Spain and things like that. That was great. I think we could pretend to be like we were pop stars in Spain, but no, we didn't. And actually, I was just thinking while Amanda was speaking that I've actually been on 3 top 40 records. With the Wedding Presents, the Candy Skins, and Hefner, and every time there was we might get on top of the pops, and every time it didn't happen. And I think it might be me. I think that someone kind of just doesn't want me on TV, which is understandable. The only TV I've really done actually is when Huggy Bear were on The Word. I was their driver. Because they needed equipment. So I drove their equipment to the studio for them. And then they said, oh, since you've done that, come on stage with us. So I was a member of Huggy Bear on that show, and that was
Wow.
really fun.
I'm trying to remember what sci-fi show it is where there is someone they're looking through kind of great historical photographs, and this person's been traveling through time, and in the background of, you know, all these kind of major global events, and that's kind of you in Indy, really. There you are in the crowd on the word when, you know, Huggy Bear
The Indies Ellic.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. Oh, so okay, well, just, you know, you're like this, Johnny, as an arbiter of doom, but one of the things that has been quite revealing for me in doing Indie Heaven has been that it was such, you know, you guys know me all to varying degrees. Like, I talk quite a lot about OCD and kind of how difficult, like, I find certain things, and how a lot of the things I've achieved in my life has been a challenge because of it. But I think one of the reasons why I really cherish that introduction to all this stuff was because it was just, none of that stuff was there, or if it was, it wasn't a problem. And I think about those times as being amazing. And one of the things that's really kind of really made me think, and I guess it's just seeing things as an adult rather than a teenager, is that there are so many people who were involved in that time. I think it was really shit for them. You know, I've interviewed it. I'm sure they won't mind at all because it's all kind of in the interviews that are on the site. But, you know, I was speaking to Richard from 60 Foot Dolls, and I was talking about this amazing show that I saw them play as a kid, and, you know, it made me feel this, it made me feel this. And he was like, you know, I was having a fucking terrible time, you know, and it kind of blew my mind. So was it, I don't know, I guess I'll start with you, Johnny, really. Was it, when did it stop being fun?
It was just intense straight away for us. It was just really intense. I mean, the amount of media, sort of the media attention we got, it was over the top. I'll admit that. I mean, I was sick of seeing us on stuff and in magazines. I mean, I was thinking, this is too much. This is getting silly, but it just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And I think that's when you feel like you've totally lost control of it. And, you know, you start these things, you start a band because it's fun and you want to have fun. But once you sign to someone like a major label, you start to get the pressure. You know, we when we got a top 10, we were made to feel like we had failed, for instance, so we should have got a top 5. And when you've got that going on around you, you just start to, I don't know, you just start to lose momentum and also kind of belief in yourself. And that's when it gets, well, I became really disinterested. I just started to take a back seat more because I felt that it was damaging my psyche a bit too much. And at the time, obviously, I was undiagnosed autistic, and I was an undiagnosed person with OCD. So that kind of added to the mix.
Yeah, no, totally.
Going a bit loopy for me.
Martin, you said something in the interview we did about how almost that, like, you know, being on top of the pops or having a #1 record, like, you doing it didn't so much make you feel good, but made you feel like it was all a bit pointless, really, the fact that you'd done it. I mean, I've said that a bit clumsily, but
yeah, not that it was pointless, but that it wasn't really worth what I thought it was worth, you know. And so I got everything I'd ever dreamed of, you know. I mean, Sised walked around the street since we were 11 years old, talking about it all the time before we could play anything. And then it happened, and it just didn't make a difference to the way I felt about myself. There was something that was wrong, and I didn't know what it was. And because it's not like ADHD or whatever is the problem. It's not knowing. And so that doesn't work, you know. That didn't work. So how am I going to make myself feel better? And then I started getting into harder drugs, and just doing silly things that I thought, well, maybe I should do this, maybe I should that, maybe I should get married. Just looking for something, looking for an answer.
Yeah. What as a brilliant juxtaposition with you bearing your soul, there is a conversation about the frog song going on in the chat.
I like that song.
Yeah, no, big time. Manda, like, you know what this means to me. Like, I'm there every time I can get to see you play. I've always found it really strange having kind of ventured into the belly of the beast as a music journalist. Like, I honestly cannot think of a single band that got the shit your band did. Like, it blows my mind. Like, and sometimes I would feel quite guilty when I would be in the enemy archives. Like, I would be like, this is horrendous. Like, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I have told you this. But when I left the enemy, they let me go in the archive to steal some shit, like what I wanted, and I stole all the BIS press shots. And so if BIS were never mentioned in the enemy after I left, it wasn't because I'd left; it was because they probably didn't have any photos. But in there was like a sort of, like in cartoons where people like throw a threat through the window. There was like it was like something like death to BIS. And I remember just being like, this is crazy, because people are mean and people are horrible and they, write shit online. But someone had like cut out the letters to send that into the enemy. Like, I think, history has like proved that we were right. But like, you were so young to be dealing with that. Like, how did that affect you?
It's horrible, isn't it? Like, at the moment, if somebody did that to some kids in their teens, the police probably would be on to them. It is disturbing. Like, there's nothing you can do about it because it's a bit more raw than the online stuff. And there isn't anything you can do. It's not like it's going to stop you making music or stop you doing anything. It's just an absolute hatred for you. And it wasn't just the letters pages of the NME. There was things in Select where they'd drawn like stress balls with my face on it and things like that. It was just like thing upon thing with absolute hatred. And I've never been like an overly confident person in any way, but it's the really genuine fans like yourself. There actually was quite a lot of them, believe it or not. And
oh no, totally, yeah.
they totally kept us going. And it was the days where you got physical letters in the post and it was complete admiration and it was beautiful, like really, really nice. And if it wasn't for them, I don't think we could have survived it, or my confidence, at least, anyway.
Yeah, totally.
So it was weird.
I think we had this conversation before, and I mean, I've always, not so much John, because John seems to be like pretty chill about John Disco for the benefit of anyone who's not aware of John. But John seems pretty chill about everything. But I have kind of thought that it has lingered like with you and Stephen a bit, and I've said to you before, like, my fandom. What does my fandom mean, really? But ultimately, like, the people who like buy so many copies of your single that they tile their bathroom, that's what that's what it's about, rather than what some, and I say this with respect to my fellow music journalists, some prick in Camden.
Absolutely. There's fans like that who, bought so many 7 inches to decorate their wall in their house that it came up in a record label meeting thinking that they'd tried to sway the chart position. He was a genuine fan and he traveled anywhere in the world to see us, and there was umpteen people just like him and very similar who kept us going through it all. It would have been hard otherwise, because it's hurtful, and it's, you can try and be tough and say, oh, nah, it doesn't bother me. But of course it does. It's how you're a teenager. Everything affects you.
Yeah, totally. Well, you won anyway, so fuck 'em.
Maybe not John Disco, but
I think it's interesting what Manda was saying about feeling like an outsider, because I think that in the music industry, it's quite insular, and there's certain ways that you have to, it feels like to me as an outsider as well, it feels like there's certain ways that you have to behave if you want to be in and do things properly. And actually at the time, I think Johnny was probably doing them absolutely perfectly. And me and Manda weren't. And actually, if you didn't fit in, the kind of vitriol that was targeted at you was really pretty hideous. And I think it was also somewhat misogynistic and just, yeah, it was pretty unpleasant. We were really lucky because we were on a label called Sarah that everyone hated, but that was okay because we were with them and we could be part of a gang together. So we had comfort and camaraderie in the hatred against us, whereas I think BIS had less of that.
Did you can I ask you about Matthew quick? You know, obviously Heavenly left when Matthew, your supremely talented, cool motherfucker of a drummer, passed away. Did he find being in a band difficult?
That's an interesting question. I think he kind of did in a way, in that he was really young when we started Tallulah Gosh. So he was 14 or 15. And so he'd always been in bands and he'd never had to develop any kind of ability to engage socially that didn't involve people coming up to him and kind of starting the conversation and he was also very funny, but he kind of generated this entire kind of character. And I think that as kind of indie pop star character, and I think it did make him probably add to his instability. I don't think it was being in a band that in the end was the problem for him, but I think it did, yeah, it just probably reduced his inherent self-confidence. And being in a band with your sister, where everybody is, I guess, more focused on your sister, is also probably not great for the same. So yeah, I think it all added up.
What a cool dude though.
He was.
Johnny, you haven't made a tremendous amount of music since it all. Like, was that a decision, or was that just you didn't feel like you could? Or
I think I ran away and kept running for a long time. Basically, it kind of when it really affects you in a very negative way, and it's a public thing. I think you just want to get as far away from everyone as possible. And I've always felt like I want to get as far away from people as possible anyway. But you know, it was something I wanted. I kind of put it in a box and then put that away. And then I found that just made me worse in my mood. My moods weren't getting better because I wasn't getting involved with music anymore. And then I started slowly to creep back into just doing stuff because I'm compelled to do it, not for anyone else. And I think that's the way everyone should do it. You should just be making music because you find it fun. Problem is when it gets serious, that fun edge gets taken away and it becomes all about business. And I think the business side of the music industry is what made me run and not stop running. I just didn't want to be around those kinds of people anymore.
Totally.
I was young as well, you know. We were a young band. We were very naive, and I had a lot of growing up to do after Menswe, you know.
Yeah. Did you? Well, do you miss it?
I liked playing live, and I like recording music, which I can do anyway. Anyone who wants to do that can do that, and that's great. You just need a PC and some crap software, and off you go. But sometimes, I do miss doing gigs and being on stage because there's nothing else for me like that. And it's when I feel I can connect with people, which is something I usually find quite hard to do. So I do miss that. I mean, I have been out a couple of times in the last 10 years, just doing little things for fun. But I wouldn't want to do anything like I did with Menswe again. I don't think I could.
Yeah,
It's not what it's cracked up to be, you know.
It must have been really nice with the when the box set came out. I thought there was some really lovely, well, not so much reappraisal, but there was some really lovely, well, reappraisal, because I can't think of a better word right now.
We just wanted to, I think, especially between me, Matt, and Chris, we wanted to kind of end it, but in a really nice way. It's like a full stop that. And we had made so much music that no one had ever heard, you know, because we never got a chance to release it for people. That we thought, why don't we just do it now? I mean, you know, we've got nothing to lose, and we don't really care what anybody thinks about us now.
Yeah,
let's just put it out. It was just a nice thing to do, and it was really nice to find that people liked it and appreciated it. Really.
Yeah. Martin, you've made, to be, you know, if I'm going to be completely frank, I think that the majority of my favourite Martin Carr songs are songs that you recorded and released post Boo Radleys. Did you prefer being in the Boos, or have you felt a sense of freedom in making music afterwards? Is it? It feels a little bit more like authentic to you, in a sense.
Yeah, it was hard having to write songs and somebody else singing them, and I think the song suffered for that as well, because I didn't take as much time over the lyrics as I could have, and also if I didn't get the lyric down first, I would have no interest in going back to it, because the thrill for me was beginning to write a song, and you have to get as much of it done as possible, because as soon as that buzz is gone, I just want to move on to the next one. So singing my own songs, it's lovely. I haven't made as much music as I'd like to have done, but I'm trying to sort that out now.
Yeah. Do you think that that's been the journey with ADHD, or? Yeah,
I've got like 15 years worth of half-finished songs on my computer that I'm going through at the minute, because the tablets I'm taking are really working.
Yeah.
So it has been a problem. I found not being in the band anymore really hard, because I was used to having structure around me, and then suddenly having to pay my own gas bill and deal with real life. I found it really hard, and it was quite a few years of denial and heavy drinking before I sorted myself out.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not going to stop nagging you until you make a record every 6 months. So I feel like together we can get there.
Stuff now.
Hey,
I've got enough stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. What about you, Manda? Like I said this in the interview on the site, that I had that conversation with John outside the Buffalo Bar once, when he was sort of giving me a heads up that you were gonna do BIS with a little bit more frequency, rather than the gig in London or a gig in Glasgow every year, whatever. And he was talking a bit about like unfinished business. Like, do you? I don't know. I know from knowing you that you miss hanging out with the Beastie Boys, or being pop stars in Japan, but it feels a little bit like there's a lot of it now that you must enjoy more than back in the day.
Oh, I really miss it. I miss it so much, and like Ian says, I do feel that there's so much unfinished business. I think the reason being that the three of us are still absolutely itching to do stuff, and we have a record label who's willing to put pretty much anything out that we do. And we have, like Martin's saying, like years and years worth of material that we really like, or we're kind of tinkering with, and we're kind of getting a routine together, like technology wise, of throwing stuff between us, and hopefully going to get this new album that we've been talking about for ages released
Yeah.
at long last. We're talking at the moment about a re-release of Return to Central, the third album, and putting some extra stuff on it and doing it the way it should have been done, because it feels.
I mean, it's the best one.
That's very, very nice of you to say. It just feels like the mastering of it and the whole production side of it, it just didn't do it the justice it kind of needed as a third album, and we're getting it done properly, and we're going to put some extra songs on it that should have been on it, and
Right.
yeah, we're just going to do everything as properly as we can. So hopefully that will come out this year, hopefully, and the new album not far behind it, I hope.
Amazing. Amelia, you just keep going and going, man. Like, can you imagine a time in your life where you're not in a band?
Probably not at this point, because I've tried to stop so many times and it just always keeps we just always keep starting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I stopped Tallulah Gosh because I thought people over 21 shouldn't be in bands, and that was I was probably right, actually. But anyway, I've proven myself wrong, and so yeah, and at the moment I'm in 4 bands. One of which was created at the start of lockdown with Hugh from the Pooh Sticks, and actually the drummer and Hugh have never even met because we've done everything by shooting things to and fro. So it's just we just kind of, it's what we do, just kind of me and Rob all the time, and takes up all our time. And I think if we didn't do it anymore, we might, I don't know what would happen. The great vistas of time would open up. So it's kind of, I guess it's how we live.
Yeah, no, totally. Life is and all that. I'm going to just say to the attendees that if anyone has a question they'd like to ask, if you want to put it in the chat, and I'll kind of weave that into the next 30 minutes. But I guess, while people are doing that, I'll just ask some of the questions I want to ask as well. Like Tallulah Gosh, like being there at the time, like you've become like a revered band, like a classic band. But you said to me before that it didn't really feel like that at the time.
It certainly didn't feel like that. I'm not sure. I think it's quite true now. But it's
no. If you speak to music journalists of an age, they will talk about how important Tallulah Gosh were. Like, you get articles in the Guardian. Like, you are remembered in a way of, oh, they were an important band.
So it's interesting. I think we weren't entirely unlike Johnny's description of Menswe, actually, in that we were quite scenesters. We knew all the kind of people that were going to, we were just going to all the right gigs, and so as a result, we got discovered really fast. Like we were full page 3 in Melody Maker by The Legend and NME, actually, when we were, I don't know, maybe a couple of months old, really. I mean, it was kind of insane. And so it all happened really, really, really quickly. And therefore, we didn't quite know what we were doing. We didn't have a clue whether our songs were good or bad. And actually, a major label did talk to us about whether we might want to sign to them. And one of the reasons that I backed away is I wasn't actually sure that we could ever write another song. And they were like obviously expecting an album's worth. And I don't know if I can do that. So it just felt, it was all such a crazy time that I don't think we knew. It's hard to even look back with in any kind of sensible way. We weren't on drugs either, but nonetheless, my memory of it is completely fuzzed up just because it was all very exciting. But yeah, pandemonium.
It's kind of weird, man. Like, it was a long time ago.
It was.
Do you know what I mean? Like, this happens since engaging more with the music I loved as a teenager for this website. It will occur to me that when I was born, the Second World War was the same distance away as the first Biss album or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's pretty crazy. We've got a question in the chat, which is for Amanda. and it was about the recording of Eurodisco and what it was like working with Andy Gill.
Okay, so that was our first.
The late Andy Gill.
Yeah, late Andy Gill. So that's the first kind of proper producer we'd had. That cost a lot of money, an awful lot of money. So it was quite an experience to record with someone who's basically ripping apart stuff you've written already, and you kind of get a bit upset by some of the suggestions and the way that he wants to do things. But I can see that's why producers make the living that they do, because they're telling you they're seeing it from a different viewpoint. And a song like Eurodisco, it didn't have a chorus like that to begin with. The middle part of it was the chorus, which is an okay wee part, but it's not a chorus. And he just said, go and write a chorus. And we did. And it ended up going to number 37. So that's not a bad way to do it, I suppose. But
it is Andy Gill, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he was a good guy. It was the best thing that could maybe have happened for us at the time. He was very pricey. He liked his seafood and he liked eating in the bar next door. But he was a fun guy to hang out with. And yeah, I'm very, very sad that he's gone.
Yeah, no, totally. Good band, Gang of Four as well.
Absolutely.
Our mutual friend Dee, she's asking about Mogwai getting a #1 album. Have they been given the keys to Glasgow in the wake of that?
Oh God, I'm very happy for any Glasgow band to get a #1 album. But yeah, I'm hoping we'll maybe get one day. I'm saying that jokingly.
No. I think we've made some pacts. We've made some pacts. We've made some bonds on this chat. I'm going to nag Martin instead of making 3 records a year. We're going to get Biss to #1. Not sure we've agreed yet what we're going to do for Johnny or Amelia.
It is really weird though. Like, there's bands that I've been into for a long time, like Sleater Kinney, Bikini Kill, and when I've gone to see them over the last year, they're playing gigantic venues and they're now massive, and they weren't back in the day. And I don't know what happened. I really don't. It's not like their music's changed. It's not like fashion has changed. They're exactly the same. And I don't know, like, I just feel we need this wee lucky break or something like that. It might happen, you never know.
I mean, this is the thing, like, I am quite a believer in the good stuff just gets there in the end. Like, things sort of maybe feel out of step or out of time, but if it's good, like, I feel like eventually it finds the audience that it deserves.
So it's not game over just yet. We're still trying.
Yeah, listen, you're the greatest band of all time. You're the band the Beatles could have been. When Martin, talking about those records, when are we going to see another solo record from you?
I'm working on something else at the minute. I'm working on like a subscription thing. At the minute, it's a magazine with, it's going to have like quarterly, but with 4 new tracks every time. So I'm kind of, that's the way I'm going to be releasing for now. I haven't got a record label anyway. And it just, you can spend a year making a record and then it's over in a day. It's just, just rather do it this way, really. Make it for people who want to hear it.
Yeah, tell me a bit more about that, though. I don't understand. Is this some kind of multimedia?
Well, you make a record and you make it at home, and you're having to do so many jobs that other people used to do. You're producing and engineering and playing, and then you have to go through the whole getting the sleeves done and all that, and then it comes out and you get a couple of plays on 6 Music, and that's it, and it's gone. And it just seems like madness to do it again, but I love doing it, and I can't, I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting. Like, I always used to feel like that, when I was editing a weekly music mag, and you just spend all week just like with it consuming me at least anyway. It was kind of how I'm built. for rightly or for better or for worse. Like you'd spend all week just, it was the only thing you thought about. It totally dictated your thinking, and then it came out, and it was like on to the next thing. Like, and I was always really interested in the idea, especially you know, in this crazy information superhighway age that we're in, of almost like how you kind of slow things down a little bit, like almost like how can you make the world a little bit slower, which I kind of think, you know, that's kind of what albums are supposed to be, I think. Not really a question, more of a statement.
Isn't the album dead though? I thought.
Say what, Johnny?
The internet has changed how people listen to music, how they consume it anyway, from when we were making CDs. So the whole thing's just totally changed, and it changes every week. It seems it's a totally different way of listening to and releasing music. You can do it on your own now, and you can find a bigger audience now. You know, which is why I think a lot of these gigs, people who weren't so big when they were around, get more audience in now, because the internet has changed that, I think, quite a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of almost democracy. I'm a journalist.
Yeah. I mean, it's killed, I think it's kind of killed the way people listen to albums, for instance. You know, when I used to get an album, I would get a physical thing and put it on and sit there and listen to the whole thing, track after track. And I don't think many people do that anymore.
And it would make you, sorry.
No, go on.
Well, vinyl is having a comeback, and I think it's partly because people do miss exactly that experience. Certainly, I've started buying more vinyl again for exactly that reason.
Yeah, no, totally. Do you? I mean, I'm never sure whether I totally buy into that vinyl revival thing. But like, isn't that just like dads buying Definitely Maybe on 12-inch?
I don't know. I mean, I think there is a bit of people wanting the artifact, and how much they actually play it. That's an interesting question. I think that, you know, they probably listen to it on Spotify and then can look at the nice sleeve on the on the shelf. But yeah, I mean, I play them.
Yeah, no, totally. I think there's another question. I mean, this is a bit sort of twisty, timey-wimey Doctor Who, but for Johnny, if you could have moved Menswe to happen in any other decade, which one would you choose and why? It's Menswe happens the time it needs to happen, right?
Yeah, I think it was about the time it happened. The 90s was probably the perfect time for us, really. Maybe in some ways we could have done with coming out a little bit later, but no, the 90s was probably peak time for that kind of thing. Yeah, I wouldn't change that.
There's a really amazing line in one of my favourite Biss songs called "Skinny Tie Sense Around," which is like, it's kind of hard to explain that song really, but it's almost like a sort of character piece, isn't it, Manda? Like, it's, you know, the titular character, you know, is having, it's almost a bit sort of Train Spotting, a bit sort of Irvin Welsh in a sense, you know. And there's a line where sort of where Stephen, who's singing, says, you know, the 80s were probably shit if you weren't a kid. I guess that kind of, you know, you guys being like, you know, my teenage heroes. Was the 90s shit, or was I just a kid?
Is this for me?
This is for all. This is for
I
all.
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was a great time, and it was a bad time. I don't know. I sound like, I don't know. It was all right. What I can remember of it. You know?
Right. No,
I love the 90s.
Yeah, it's good points and it's bad points. You know.
I guess kind of where I'm getting with it really is that me and my wife Kat, hello Kat, we have this thing on a Monday with some friends called Horror Club. We watch a horror movie every Monday. You know, COVID, not much else to do, and quite often the sort of movies are kind of late 90s slasher movies, and there'll be an actor in it who, you know, you're like reminded of the existence of, and you have no idea what happened to them. And I guess I always remember the 90s as being this like super progressive time, but you'll be like, oh, whoa, that hasn't aged very well, or like. And I guess I've thought about it differently now, really, and from doing this website as well, you know, like especially speaking to women, where I've always thought, oh yeah, the 90s, you know, everyone was up for it, everyone was up for a bit of a laugh, you know, and then you're hearing from women particularly who are like, no, it's fucking awful.
There was a lot of misogyny, I think.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, the whole lad thing was just so in your face and everywhere. It wasn't a great time, I don't think, for a lot of females in bands. I don't think they were treated in the same way, to be honest.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I do feel like, well, I mean, it's easy for me to say, but you know, I do feel like we have made some inroads somehow.
Yeah.
Britpop was quite laddish. It's true. There was obviously some amazing female Britpop singers as well, but actually around the same time, Riot Girl was growing and growing, and Slater Kinney was growing in popularity. So I guess maybe with Manda and I, that's more where our passions lay, and so we were getting angry about those things, but maybe not actually having to go to the clubs where we would have been suffering from them.
Yeah. There's a question for, well, all of them, all of you, but it sort of knows to Manda, from Joelle. It says, you all, especially Manda, made so much impact on me as an awkward teen, and DIY spirit has stuck with me. I know a lot of teens now, and the DIY approach is even more possible with the tools that they have. How optimistic can we be for young girls making music now? That's a great question.
Very good question. I wish the tools that were around just now existed when I was younger, because God knows what we could have done. It was just awkward. It was possible, and it was fun getting the 4-track, and you connect whatever you want to it, and you make whatever type of song you could. But at the moment, you can do absolutely anything for pretty not much money at all. So yeah, it's a fantastic time for girls just to really go for it. Nothing to lose at all. It's going to take a long fucking time before anything has changed to any degree with the misogyny and the way everything is for women. But if you don't go for it, I don't know when it ever will, because not an awful lot has changed since I started, to be honest.
Right. Do you really feel like that?
Mm-hmm. I really do. Because what was it, only just in the last couple of years you had the Grammy Awards, where it was like hardly any females at all that were up, like, out of the, it was like 900 nominees or something, and it was like a fraction that was female, and it's like, it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. 2% were producers that were females. So we've got a long way to go, but we've got to just keep going. And the way technology is, that's hopefully helpful, but we need the confidence, and we need to just keep pushing it the best we can.
Yeah, the Reading, I can't remember who's playing Reading theoretically if it happens this year, but last year when I was looking at the rundown, it was just hugely depressing. And my kids are actually, they're both girls, and they're 16 and 18. And I was saying, why would you want to go and see this? There's no females. And they were like, who cares? I don't like female bands very much. And I was like, but
is it too late to farm them out for adoption?
Yes, have them.
Yeah.
But they don't think they like female bands because the female bands aren't fed to them, and so it's a bad circle. Yeah,
no, totally. I guess just bringing this back, because like I say, just giving a shout out to Mad COVID, the organisation that are going to get the proceeds from this event. Just bringing it kind of back to mental health for a minute. Do you think, I guess the kind of, one of the reasons why the music industry is, an exciting place and a place with, opportunity for people, is that it is kind of the Wild West, there is that element to it. But what do musicians need for help that doesn't exist?
A support.
Yeah,
So
That's
when
it.
bands are starting out in the beginning, they need a lot of support, because it's difficult to do that and work, you know, which is, I think a lot of bands now do have day jobs as well as, you know.
We had the dole when we were.
Yeah. I mean, that was a lifeline. Menswe couldn't have happened without the dole. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who
Well, James, you get paid. The gigs now pay the same as they did pretty much when we started out in the late 80s. Everything else is much more expensive.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, as you know, Amelia, like, well, I mean, I guess Biss to an extent as well, but in terms of playing out of the UK at some point, like, how does Brexit affect all of this?
I haven't tried to look yet, but it looks like it's going to be hideous. I mean, playing America has been hideous for ages. It's stupendously complicated and expensive. And I think it's just going to risk being the same. And it's really depressing and appalling for British music, which, you know, even after all this time, Britain thinks it does loads of things well. It does do music well, and it doesn't support it, and it's rubbish.
The last time I came back from America, I can't remember what airport I flew into, and there's some British Airways advertisement as you're going down the kind of the walking thing. You know what I'm talking about, like the kind of escalator, and there's all these
movie future thing. The future movie future. Mover.
Yeah, and there's a bit. There was a load of adverts kind of as you go down it, and it's like, the Who arrived here in 1960 whatever after slaying the world, and it's really trading on that kind of cultural impact. And I was like, you know, everyone wants to champion this stuff when they want to, but you know, at the same time, people.
Tony Blair was the most famous, wasn't he? For that, he really used Cool Britannia and these Britpop bands, and it's one of the reasons he got a lot of young people voting for it. So,
which I think is so smart. It's just that time and time again, it just feels like lip service.
Mm.
You know, I kind of, when you think about, you know, I can only really speak about central London, but you know, I used to work just off Denmark Street, you know, where all the guitar shops and stuff. I mean, admittedly, like, you know, you don't go to Denmark Street to buy a guitar, but like there was so much kind of heritage to that place. You know, see you later. They want to trade off it, but, you know. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, Martin, you saying about the dole and what a lifeline that was almost. I mean, how important was that? Was it a sense that it almost gave you time to develop and grow?
Well, we'd been doing gigs and working at the same time, and it was when it got a bit busier. I think when Rough Trade got involved, and we just needed more time because we would leave work in Birkenhead and then drive to Norwich for a gig. It would just take hours and hours. Always got stopped by the police coming back in. Because if you were in a van in the middle of the night, you were in the IRA. So it was great to finally, have to be able to leave work and go on the dole. It was just so easy then.
Totally.
And then Travis gave us 50 quid a week each to
have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Totally. Pay for my pizza though.
You what, Johnny?
When it was in New York, he famously didn't buy Menswe. He didn't pay for the bill because he wanted to sign us. And we ended up in a pizza restaurant with him, and he just didn't pay the bill, and we were really put out by. It's ridiculous now, but we basically didn't sign to Blanco y Negro because Jeff didn't pay for a pizza for us.
I mean,
different times.
Exactly. Listen, I'm going to wrap this up. This has been a real thrill for me, and I am so grateful to you guys for taking part in this, and also just humouring me with the website in the first place. I don't want to sound too sort of gross, but the music that all four of you made has mattered so much to me in my life and continues to do so. And I'm also just, it means so much to me that we've all become to varying degrees friends. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there anything you would like to plug before we go? Amelia, you've got loads of things to plug.
Go on then. There's a new single and new album coming from the Catenary Wires, and there's a new single and new album coming in the autumn from Swansea Sound, all on our new label that we've made, because you can. And actually, one thing about that, which I've absolutely loved, is it's taken me back to that kind of fanzine thing and talking to people, in that I'm doing the PR and I'm emailing people and saying, listen to our record, please. And then they're writing back and saying whether they like it or not. And it feels just incredibly human. And I keep forgetting that I'm in lockdown, because I just am talking to so many people every day. And it's just, so I'm incredibly grateful for those people engaging with me.
Manda, I just tell people about your badge business. I just ordered some badges off you, and I swear the delivery arrived like before I'd even ordered. Somehow it kind of went through some kind of black hole in space and time.
I think Royal Mail are trying to make up for their lack of service over December. Yeah, my day job is my little business called webadgers.com, and I started it making badges for BIS, and then it went to the next band and then the next band, and then I ended up making a small living from it that worked around my touring activities. So I left my job at the radio station and all that. So that's my little job, webadgers.com. And apart from that, plug our album when it gets re-released, Return to Central, on LNFG Records, and then hopefully the new album will make it one of these days if we manage to get round to it.
Amazing. So Martin, when can we look for your magazine album releasing new idea?
Well, I'm right in the middle of it now. Hopefully get it finished in a couple of weeks, and so, but that's going to be kind of, the first one is going to be kind of the at the showroom. You know, I don't know how I'm going to distribute that one.
Exciting.
I'll be on Twitter banging on about it, and
awesome. Yeah. I wondered, Johnny, you do so much like amazing advocacy with autism awareness. I wondered if you could see us off with just talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, basically, one of the things that I'm really banging on about a lot is that autistic children grow up to be autistic adults, and there's not really there's hardly any support for that. It's really not good at all. So yeah, if you fancy giving some money towards autism awareness, please go to the National Autistic Society website. Give them, I mean, no, it doesn't matter how much, but it will help. And there's a lot of us out there, you know. There's a lot more of us out here than you might think.
I was just about to say that was really lovely, but it was kind of frightening actually. Yeah. The finger made
creepy Uncle John.
Listen, if anyone wants to check out my website, it's www.indieheaven.co.uk. Thank you all so much. I'm gonna turn my screen off, but because people have been talking about sprouts in the chat for about an hour now, I'm just going to leave the chat if anyone wants to wrap up. But thanks so much.
Thank you.